Hi, I'm Dr. Andrea Mann, a child psychiatrist and mother of two. I'm going to talk briefly for about 7 minutes about the effects of digital media on youth and why parents need to take a more proactive stance about how to set healthy boundaries around its use at home and at school. Our society has adopted technologies like the smartphone that have helped us communicate, schedule, and navigate our world. And these technologies help us make things more efficient. Digital technology, including streaming video content like Netflix and YouTube, have also become a primary source of entertainment. It is an inescapable part of daily life. In fact, I'm using this very technology right now to record this mini talk. And these technologies were originally designed by adults for adults as a tool and as forms of entertainment. But it's very important to realize there's significant brain growth and development that happens in childhood and adolescence. There are parts of the brain that are more active than in adults. Those brain regions that become hyperactive in teens are those responsible for seeking rewarding experiences and those brain regions involved in sensing how emotionally notable something may be. In other words, the reward system and emotional regions of the brain become hyperactive. So while the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for executive functioning, the prefrontal cortex is in the front part of the brain, and it's responsible for judgment, reasoning, thinking things through, time management, planning. That part of the brain, that front part, is highly underdeveloped and underactive. So, with digital media, there are opportunities for social interactions 24 hours per day. And this is happening during a critical developmental period when teens are especially sensitive to social rewards and punishments. You're wondering what social rewards are. Think of those positive emojis, those like buttons, and those hearts, right? The comments that kids and adults leave for others on social media. Over time, families have been giving their teens and children more and more access to these technologies. The field of psychology and psychiatry have observed a steep increase in problematic internet use in teens, and we've also noticed a huge increase in anxiety and in depression in a very short amount of time. So, take the past 10 years. It's hard to research digital media and its effects on mental health in youth. There are different types of media and different reasons and habits that teens use it, and the total hours per day doesn't really provide the more nuanced perspective that this topic deserves. There will never be what is considered a gold standard research trial or a placebo-controlled double-blind study to prove that certain types of digital media in certain youth at certain ages can have a negative impact on youth mental health. It would never be done because it would be very hard to supervise and implement and get funding and to pass through an institutional internal review board, which is kind of like an ethics review of the study itself. So we're left with observational studies. Observational studies are showing teens are getting less sleep, they're reading less, they're spending an average of 8 hours per day on their smartphones, and the more time on digital media like social media or video games, the more symptoms they're showing of digital media addiction. So a recently published study from JAMA 2023 in January showed that brain activity of middle schoolers over 3 years, and they looked at how the brain was functioning before and after, and they found that those middle schoolers who checked their phones more frequently were more sensitive to social rewards. Think positive emojis, positive comments, and the parts of the brain responsible for executive functioning, like time management, planning, judgment, that part of the brain was less active. So this suggests that smartphone use in teens is not an entirely benign experience. It's actually impacting their brain functioning. So what can we do about it? My mantra is less is more. We need to normalize setting boundaries around digital technology use, and this has to come from several levels, from individual families, from parent groups, and from schools. For example, a local middle school principal implemented a new rule with consequences that phones could not be brought out during school hours. Parents can also create a pact with other parents in their friend circles to delay introducing a phone until the end of 8th grade. I'm partial to introducing a smartwatch with certain limits that can allow the child to make phone calls and send and receive very simple texts. Although a smartwatch can still be distracting, and it's not nearly as distracting and interfering with learning and social connections as a smartphone. If you're having trouble resisting the social pressures to get your child a phone, consider giving your young teen a phone that can send and receive text only and make phone calls. A 13-year-old brain is very different than a 17-year-old brain. Make a rule that kids are not allowed to keep their phones in their rooms. Tweens and teens are less likely to do impulsive, regrettable things on their phones at night when they're alone if they are in a common room. And also, they're likely to sleep better if they aren't charging their phone in their room. Have a bedtime for your phone and have a bedtime for your kids. Make sure that bedtime is at least an hour before you expect your kids to be asleep. You can keep track of your iPads and other digital devices. Consider reintroducing the family TV room, where tweens and teens can watch TV shows and play video games in an open space. Again, they're less likely to make poor decisions when the technology is not in a fully private space, and there is a risk of mom or dad or another sibling walking by. Parents can introduce digital technology in stages with a clear written contract describing when and how it can be used and when and how the privilege will be lost. For older teens, like those in high school, consider adding social media apps stepwise and consider telling them upfront that you plan to periodically check their phones or that you plan to use a software like Bark that looks for concerning content. As your high schooler grows older and develops better judgment and time management, you can peel back the supervision. That's all I have for today. Goodbye for now.